Welcome to the press conference call for the June edition of the Philadelphia Fed's Manufacturing Business Outlook Survey. Today we will learn what manufacturers had to say about business activity for the month of June. I'm Danielle Mazzone, Media Relations Representative at the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, and I am joined by Senior Economic Analyst Mike Trebbing. Mike's going to start our conversation today with a quick overview of this month's survey.
Good morning. Our survey's broad indexes suggest some improvement in regional manufacturing growth this month. The diffusion indexes for overall activity, new orders, shipments, and employment were all positive, and the indexes for activity, new orders, and shipments were notably higher than their readings in May. Firms did report higher input prices this month, reversing the trend of reporting price reductions in recent months. Similarly, we had more firms reporting price increases for their own products than reported decreases for the first time in 6 months. Most of our broad indicators for future activity over the next 6 months showed improvement, although the index for future employment, although still positive, was near its reading in May. Our special questions this month addressed firms' appraisal of underlying demand conditions and their expectations for production plans for the next 6 months.
Mike, can you tell us a little bit about the special questions this month?
Sure. As I mentioned in the introduction, we asked about the firm's appraisal of their underlying demand for their manufactured products, and we found that over half of the firms indicated that they thought their underlying demand was increasing, although most of them considered the modest, that the increases were modest, and the time period there was over the last 3 months. And then we also asked them about their expectations for production increases over the second half of the year compared to the first. And there again we found an overwhelmingly large percentage of the firms were planning increases, with a surprising 32% expecting growth of production of over 5%. So the average was somewhere in the 2 to 3% growth rate, which is good numbers compared to say growth rates we're seeing in the first half of the year so far in the industrial production index, which is much slower rates of growth. And we also asked them whether that, on an individual firm basis, whether that growth expectation was an acceleration or deceleration compared to the first quarter, and indeed most of the firms indicated that it was an acceleration. And then we narrowed the question about if the firms indeed were planning to increase production, what share of those firms were going to do so by hiring additional workers. And among that group, about a third of the firms indicated that they would be hiring additional workers to get that production up. But similar percentages were also indicating that they'd either just without hiring additional workers, increase the work hours of existing staff, and then 35% indicated that they would just increase the productivity of current staff, again without hiring workers. So it does suggest among 2/3 of the firms that there's some excess capacity, if you will, that they're still going to be able to increase production without increasing their total number of workers.
Richard Leong from Reuters, do you have a question?
I was just wondering, with the latest survey there, what are we looking at in terms of any responses about the strength of the dollar and its impact on demand and business conditions?
Mm-hmm. We did ask that question in a special question a few months ago. You might want to look back and see the responses that we got then. We do have a few still commenting upon international impacts, but of course, we didn't narrow their focus this time with any special questions, so they were pretty much voluntary. And we got a broad mix of commentary this month on many different things. Some focusing on pickup in orders, others talking about seasonal variation of business, that kind of thing. But I wouldn't characterize the comments as overwhelmingly focused on international conditions. So I suggest maybe you go back and see what these same firms said a few months ago about the net effect of the stronger dollar on business in particular.
So Mike, just going back, no one have sort of because you didn't ask the question in particular, but no one on the commentary there's not an overwhelming number comments talking about international developments or about the dollar this month.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good characterization of it. And we do have a lot of firms, in that marketplace, but they tend to focus on overall business conditions. And often when we ask these special questions too, they'll tailor their comments on the questions at hand. And as I mentioned in the introduction, this month we were focusing their attention on just underlying demand conditions, and we asked specifically about what their production growth might be in the second half of the year. And also we had another sub-question where we asked among those that were going to increase production, how they were going to realize that production with either existing staff or increases in productivity or hours of their existing employees. So you might want to take a look at that breakdown as well. It's interesting responses.
Anything else, Richard?
I think nope, that's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you for your participation, and the next Manufacturing Business Outlook Survey will be released on Thursday, July 16th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
Great, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Bye.